welcome everyone to the fourth episode of WWF-India's podcast, Nature Speaks. It's about people and places and species and spaces. Today I'm speaking to my colleague Predit. Predit works with the Western Ghats-Nilgiris Landscape of WWF India. He's based out of Coimbatore. The Western Ghats-Nilgiris Landscape covers the state of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Kerala. And Predit leads our work on conservation of the Nilgiri Tahr there. The Nilgiri Tahr is, as we like to put it, is a lesser known species. And Predit has almost for more than a decade been working very dedicatedly for the conservation of the Nilgiri Tahr. So I'm going to welcome Predit onto the show and allow him to speak about his work and on the conservation issues around Nilgiri Tahr. Predit, welcome onto Nature Podcasts.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Predit, why don't we start with a little introduction about yourself? I've spoken that you lead our work on Nilgiri Tahr Conservation and that you are based out of Coimbatore in the Western Ghats-Nilgiris Landscape. But a little bit about yourself and how you came to work on Nilgiri Tahr Conservation. What does this, mean to you in terms of almost for, dedicatedly working on this species for a decade? What fascinates about you? What fascinates you about this species? How did you come to work on it?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for the question. So I have a master's in wildlife biology. I did my dissertation on grasslands of Nilgiris. So basically that's how I actually studied the habitat initially. But I was really interested to work on tigers. So, but then during 2006, there was a conference happened in Munnar. So, a mountain ungulate conference. During that, people have discussed about various things about different mountain ungulates. That point in time, they have talked about Nilgiri Tahr. So, they were wondering what would be the right then conservation issues. So, basically, to conserve any species, as we know, we need to know the population and distribution and all. So, that point in time, it was really crude. So during the 2006, everybody thought that a holistic approach of understanding about the distribution and status of Nilgiri Tahr should be taken up by some people or maybe forest department. So that's where WWF have thought that because nobody have done any work on Nilgiri Tahr, so WWF pooled in expertise from Tamil Nadu, Kerala and various parts who have worked on Nilgiri Tahr and tried to see what can be done, as a beginning from 2006 that conference.
Right. Reddit, what you're saying is that the Nilgiri Tahr isn't a very well-known species. Till about 2 decades ago, not even much was known about the numbers, let alone what to do for its conservation. No one even knew how many Nilgiri Tahr there were. And a group of people got together and said, we should work on conservation of the species, and that's how you were in a conference and you got interested, and as part of WWF India got involved in the initial exercise. But a step back, Predit, I know when you say that not much was known, it is true that not much was known maybe about the population, but the people there in the region, for the people of Kerala and for the people of Tamil Nadu, there must have been some sort of a cultural significance of the Nilgiri Tahr. It must mean something to them. There might be stories. So even though, say, formal science may not have known much in terms of population, but the local people there might have been stories about the Nilgiri Tahr. Can you speak to that a little, please?
Yes. So as far as coming to speak about Nilgiri Tahr, so there are Sangam literature. It's called all classical literatures, which is more than 2000 years old. There are a lot of Tamil literatures which describes about the presence of Nilgiri Tahr. Mostly when they talk about, there is this 5 sorts of land uses in Tamil. So one is Kurinji, which speaks about the mountainous landscape and the animals' presence there. So everywhere, wherever there in classical literature, wherever there is inscription about this landscape, so Nilgiri Tahr is part of this landscape and it's beautifully described. That's all about in literature. But when we actually see the cultural association, there are rock cut paintings. So in a few places at least. So one place I would say that it's Tamil Nadu Kerala border. It's called Mariyur. there is a place called Edithapara. There we have got rock art paintings of Nilgiri Tahr. And there is a place in Garikyor, it is in Nilgiris. So there are also some rock art paintings. So when people have studied that, that paintings could be, as old as like between 4,000 to 10,000 years BC. So there are cultural significances.
This is great. I mean, so Nilgiri Tahr has been part of the local consciousness culturally with the communities there for probably several thousand years. And then, as you said, in 2006, sometime there was this conversation. So what happened then? Was there a formal count done? And can you tell us a little about the kind of habitat that the Nilgiri Tahr occupies, and about that survey? What did we learn? What was your role? I know you were part of the team. What came out of it?
So 2008, we decided somebody, because earlier there were surveys. So mostly during 60s, 70s, Dr. Yash Shethia had done most of the surveys. So he said that there are 18 populations which close to around 1850 something. That was back in 1970s. After that, in 1980s, Clifford Rice has done some studies mostly in Irvikulam. So that is our base on ecology of Nilgiri Tahr. So after that, many people have attended, mostly in Irvikulam and Nilgiris and Grass Hills, which is all contiguous population. But then everybody thought that there are much more scattered populations. So that is where. So what tricky thing is happening is that because Nilgiri Tahr, as per its behavior, it needs to find a refuge from predators, natural pressures. So that is how this Nilgiri Tahr is primarily distributed in this fascinating rocky escarpment, mountainous grassland areas. So that's why we get to see that it is distributed in a scattered population right from Nilgiris to Kanyakumari. So everybody thought that it is difficult for any person to go and do a service because it is inaccessible areas, need to do a lot of trekking and climbing. So that's where WWF pitched in. Okay, if nobody is doing it, let's WWF start and do working on it. We started our service in 2008. Probably it was a very slow and steady survey right from Nilgiris. So it's almost took 4 or 5 years because it was a small team. We surveyed each and every area, and we had come up with, at that point in time, a very comprehensive report on what was its numbers. And we have discovered 70 new populations because it was not known to science at that point in time. So we have come up with a technical report in 2015, which is actually, right now standing as a base for Nilgiri Tahr conservation.
And what were the numbers that came out at that point, Predit, from this survey?
It was, we estimated at 3,122, sir. It could be somewhere around 3,500, yes. Okay. For Kerala and Tamil Nadu, but it will be mostly close to 2,000 individuals in Tamil Nadu and 1,500 in Kerala. So that was the status.
Right. And this was in 2015, Predit. So what has happened since then? So we had the baseline, as you're saying, we had established the numbers. This was a very difficult survey. Very few organizations had so far till then done something so systematic. So WWF-India and some of our partners together did this survey, were part of it.
So the Wildlife Institute of India had a program for population genetics. I joined in that project, but unfortunately I was not able to fulfill all my ecological aspects because I was more concentrated on this genetic part. However, we got to know that after completion of the project, we understood that genetically this population has a divergence because Palghat Gap being that 40-year gap, 40-kilometer gap in that Western Ghats. So that plays a major role in divergence in population genetics. So now it is understood that north of Palghat Gap and south of Palghat Gap, we have a divergence in population amongst the Nilgiri Tahr. But as far as that project concerned, we are now sure that we can have some forensic implication. For example, if there is some poaching or something happening from some location, we can now narrow it down to from which region this population or this particular animal might have poached.
I wanted to also ask you is that since that point, since you came back from WII, since the end of that project, you have again been working very closely in the region on the Nilgiri Tahr conservation. So what has happened since then? What are we doing? What is WWF India doing presently? What is the Forest Department doing? I also know that the Tamil Nadu government has stepped in a very, very big way. And there is a lot of pride now attached to Nilgiri Tahr conservation. The state government is very active. So can you speak to that a little, please?
Yes. So after coming from I again back with the WWF leading this conservation initiative on Nilgiri Tahr. So it was again 5 year, 6 year gap. So WWF India thought that we need to have one more survey. We did that one more survey. And after that survey, we wanted to have a holistic conservation approach for Nilgiri Tahr. So that we have presented with Tamil Nadu Forest Department. So Forest Department, because already Tamil Nadu government, they knew that conservation significance of Nilgiri Tahr, and they've announced it's Tamil Nadu state animal. So then they've actually appreciated our effort, and they said that it can't be, just like a small work. So government can only take up this work, and we can scale it up to a larger level. And they have initiated a project Nilgiri Tahr, especially for Tamil Nadu state. So that it is initially it is for 5 years at a cost of 25 crores. So it has got a holistic approach like counting numbers to assess habitat suitability and planning for historical sites for reintroduction, and sometimes to study the movement and barrier, try to facilitate recolonization if it is happening. So it has an holistic approach. Also, government of Tamil Nadu has a welcome approach that whoever has worked on Nilgiri Tahr, they are taking them along with them. For example, WWF India has done so much of work. And for example, they are actually in coordination with Kerala Forest Department to try to bring up this conservation initiative to Kerala Forest as well, because as a holistic approach.
It's been very, very encouraging the way the Tamil Nadu government especially has stepped in for the conservation of the Nilgiri Tahr. You were part of the operation where a Nilgiri Tahr was collared for the first time. What was that experience like? And if you could also conclude very quickly with saying what might be the future.
So this is the first ever collaring for Nilgiri Tahr. A lot of planning. This almost took like 2.5 years for us to do our first collaring. But since we were prepared, because Forest Department is also very cautious, because this is Schedule 1 and protected species, and also nobody have ever attempted a tranquilization technique. So we have actually tried to develop different sorts of techniques. Finally, we end up in achieving a drive-in method. We have put in nets, and we have driven the Nilgiri Tahr. We have actually captured using net. Without doing tranquilization, within 20 minutes, we have collared, we have measured the animal body condition, we have taken the required samples and everything. We have collared the individual, and we have released it, which was a very great success, because from past understanding, 2.5 years we were following it, and it was successful. Unfortunately, because it was part of a food chain process, this collared individual got preyed by a tiger after 4 months, but it had got some good insights on its movement. We have collared one more individual in Anamalai Tiger Reserve, because that was close to a little bit of human habitation area. So we've got an understanding, and we have tranquilized, and we have collared it.
So what's the future in 30 seconds, please?
So because Tamil Nadu government has already stepped in, future I can see is that there is a lot of hope in conserving and securing habitats and conserving the species. At the same time, if it can be happening from a holistic level from a central government, so the push and the conservation can be strengthened at a larger scale, so that a holistic approach can be brought in for both the states equally, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Now it is that only Tamil Nadu government has announced the Nilgiri Tahr Day, and it is being widely celebrated across the state. We want to bring this importance of this species across the globe. So probably, hopefully, in some time it will happen, sir.
Thank you, Predit. Wishing you all the best. I know this is a very, very important conservation initiative for us and for the government. As you said, we are glad that the government of Tamil Nadu has stepped in, and now central government too should step in with support, and that you also see a bright future for conservation of the Nilgiri Tahr. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Predit.
Thank you very much.
I also want to conclude. Thanks, Predit. I also want to conclude by thanking all our viewers. Please continue to tune in. I hope you enjoyed this show, and I request you to continue to tune in to our YouTube channel, WWF-India YouTube movies. Please tune in to those, and you will also be able to see our earlier episodes there, as well as upcoming episodes will also be uploaded. I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the show.